The girls just went out for a vacation, but they didn't think about this little action and almost killed them. Because the road is relatively remote, they found that they had taken the wrong route when they were driving in the middle of the road, and they had no choice but to get out of the car. According to the route on the map, let's see where we should go. Coincidentally, this is the passageway. When the young hunter passed by, the girls saw it and immediately asked how to get to the Feastin' Resort. But who knew that after the young man stopped, his face suddenly became gloomy. Don't go up to Camp Festin. So you know where it is? Bad things happen to people who visit that camp. It's not safe. Seeing that the girls had no reaction at all, the young man began to shout and ask them to leave here quickly. But I didn't expect the young man's action to mislead the girls into thinking he was mentally ill. So the girls took out their phones in embarrassment and thanked the young man and then turned around and left the place. However, they didn't know that their behavior had completely pushed them into the abyss. I don't know how long it's been. The girls finally arrived at their destination. Looking at the vacation house with a different style in front of them, the girls were in a good mood for a moment. I think this time I'm finally in the right place. So the girls couldn't wait to walk towards the house, but when they knocked on the door, no one answered. And they found that the door was also locked. The girls looked through the window in confusion, but except for the black one, there was no one inside. In order to get into the house early and rest, the girls had no choice but to go near the vacation house to see where the boss was. But who knew it was when they were about to go to the warehouse. After learning the situation, the boss immediately took them to their room to rest. At the same time, another car came here from the forest. But unfortunately, their car was blown up at this time. In this place where there is no village in front and no shop in the back, the three of them had no choice but to go to the vacation house. Calling for help along the way to find a beautiful view, but Lisa, who loves to draw, suddenly stopped walking and started sketching around with a pencil. And the lovers who were waiting for the two of them, because they didn't want to disturb Lisa's creation, so they made an appointment to go to the small forest next to each other for a long time. But before they could start, a hook pierced the woman's abdomen. Blood flowed at the moment, realizing that the situation was not good. The man just wanted to run away, but he was caught by a man with a pig mask and cut off his tongue. And at this time, the people in the vacation house were happily celebrating for their companions. But who knew that a few glasses of wine were poisoned? The long-haired girl who didn't drink much felt uncomfortable, so she rushed into the house and wanted to take a break for a while. However, at this time, the long-haired girl suddenly heard a noise coming out of the window. The woman opened the curtains slightly. Looking out the window, the man was covered in blood. The long-haired girl was so scared that she had to run out quickly. Then she called the police. But through the investigation, the police said that the man may have just been attacked by some kind of animal. It's not like what humans do. Because I heard that there were bears in the forest before, so the police told the beauties not to go to the forest over there. As for the man, the police said that he would take him to the hospital for treatment. Little did they know that this man was lucky to escape from the hands of the pighead man. But since he had been cut off his tongue, he couldn't say anything about his experience. Seeing that it was all right, the beauties continued to open their birthday party. At the same time, Lisa, who was still drawing in the forest on the other side, only then did she find her other two companions. She hasn't come back yet. Because she was worried about something, so she began to walk around in the forest. But no matter how Lisa shouted, there was no response. Then Lisa continued to walk inside, but she found a piece of her best friend's clothes in the grass next to her. Lisa suddenly realized that something was wrong, but it was too late. Lisa was scared for a moment by Jaja's scream. She tried to break it, but no matter how hard she tried, it was just a waste. And the huge movement attracted the pighead masked man. He saw him approaching Lisa slowly with an iron hook. Lisa fainted for a moment. At this time, the guests in the resort were still fighting inside.
After a while, red-haired girl was so bored that she went out alone to get some fresh air. Unexpectedly, she accidentally walked into the warehouse and saw Lisa tied up there. Red-haired girl ran up in a hurry to ask what happened to Lisa, but she didn't have time to finish her words. There was a noise outside. She didn't have to think about who was coming. When she realized that the situation was not good, Lisa was in a hurry to let red-haired girl find a place to hide first, otherwise she would die. When she saw Lisa, she was terrified. Red-haired girl didn't dare to take her with her at all. And while she was hiding, the pig-headed masked man also came in early. Lisa, who was scared, could only beg the other party not to hurt herself. Let her do anything, but the pig-headed masked man didn't care about her at all. Lisa was cut off her throat like this and died on the spot. This scared the red-haired girl who was hiding aside. She knew this place was not safe, so she wanted to leave here quietly. But when she was about to open the door, she was still found by the pig-headed masked man. Red-haired girl was also cut off her throat and took the lunchbox on the spot. And the other 4 people in the resort didn't know what was going on. When Lisa went back to the room to take a shower alone, she didn't expect that the owner of the resort was holding an axe at this time and appeared quietly at the door of the bathroom. The red-haired girl who was unprotected was cut into a pulp in an instant, and the scream also alarmed the big sister, who was taking a bath outside the room. She just wanted to listen carefully to what was going on. Suddenly 2 companions appeared and scared the big sister, so she also misunderstood that the sound she just heard was made by these 2 companions. But the strange thing is that the red-haired girl has been out for so long, but she didn't come back. Because she was worried about something, the 3 of them decided to go and find her. But after a long search, the red-haired girl was nowhere to be found. A bad premonition suddenly hit the heart. In order to speed up the progress, the 3 of them decided to split up and go to the warehouse next to the big sister. At this time, the pig-headed man and the boss were in the warehouse. When they heard that someone was coming outside, the boss told the pig-headed man not to move here first. When he went out to deal with the big sister, the pig-headed man would go out to deal with him. Seeing that the boss was about to faint, the kind big sister hurried to the front to hold her and ask what was going on. But she didn't know that this was just a trick played by the boss. Sure enough, this trick worked. The big sister was knocked out by a hammer like this. When she woke up again, she found herself lying in the dark warehouse, and all around her were some human remains. Not waiting for the big sister to react, the pig-headed man walked in with an axe. The big sister was smashed into a plate of meat, and the other 2 companions at this time didn't know what was going on. When they went to the red-haired girl's room to look for her, they didn't expect to see a very scary scene. They only saw the pig-headed man carrying the big sister. The miserable corpse appeared here. The woman covered her mouth. She tried not to make a sound, but who knew that the next second? At this critical moment, fortunately, another red-haired girl appeared in time and drove the pig-headed man away with the flamethrower. Sarah was lucky enough to escape. Then the 2 of them held hands and hurried to the door without running, but they didn't expect to run into the young man who had asked the way before. The pig-headed man was shot to the ground for a moment. And because it was the first time the young man killed someone, he was also paralyzed on the ground. Looking at the fallen gun on the ground, the young man's face turned red. The girl knew that no one was reliable now. It was only safe to have the gun in her hand. So the girl was in a hurry to pick up the gun and force the young man to take them away from here. But who knew that a few people had just died? The pig-headed man on the ground also opened his eyes at this time. It turned out that he was not dead. And Sarah and the 2 of them, in order to prevent the young man from playing tricks, tied him up with a rope. Coincidentally, the boss of the resort also came here. He told the 2 of them that the young man is mentally ill. When it happens, it's hard for you to imagine what terrible things he would do, so the boss thought that he was the only one who could protect them, so he relieved the 2 of them. Then the boss continued to say that he'd opened a resort for so many years, everyone knows that. If you don't believe him, no one in this area can trust you. So the boss tried to let Sarah give him the gun. He said he would handle everything. Let them live here in peace. However, when Sarah and the 2 of them hesitated, they saw the pig-headed man behind the boss. Let go of me, you can't. You can't, sister. Erhuan was shot in the ankle. She couldn't get up on the spot. And the young man was also hit by the pig-headed man to death. Then the boss gave the iron hook to the pig-headed man, told him to deal with the 2 women.
The pig-headed man was coming. But Sister Erhuan had no choice but to shout and let Sarah run away quickly. Sister Erhuan's next fate was to be cut off by the pig-headed man. But fortunately, Sarah on the other side just ran out. She saw a police car coming here. And the man who came down from above was the police officer who came before. Sarah thought she finally saw hope. But who knew she was so excited to run forward and wanted to tell her story, but she was knocked out by the police. When Sarah woke up again, she found herself back in the hotel room again, and the 3 bad guys sitting opposite her. Until now, Sarah can't control so much. She asked the 3 bosses loudly. She had no grudge against them. Why did you kill them all? And the boss at this time didn't hide it anymore. He said the 3 of them were brothers, and the pig-headed man was a criminal since he was a child. He was often locked up in prison, so he was treated by scientists as a lab rat. He was injected with a growth hormone which caused a huge change in his appearance. Not only that, and from then on, the pig-headed man's strength began to become extremely powerful. That's why he had a chance to kill the police officer and successfully escaped. In order not to let the pig-headed man be caught again, the 3 brothers hid themselves and came to this remote place. The pig-headed man was used to kill people, and the girl with a nice face would be the pig-headed man's breeding tool because they wanted to pass on this special gene. But they had a rule. The first time was that the police boss had to come first. They said the pig-headed man and the boss left the room on their own. Sarah knew the opportunity was coming, so she pretended to be obedient. Then, while the police was not ready, she quietly took away the weapon on her. The boss heard the movement and rushed in quickly. At this time, Sarah was no longer afraid. She exploded with amazing strength and successfully killed 2 people. Then Sarah got in the car and started driving. She was just about to start the car and prepare to escape, but through the rear-view mirror, she saw that the pig-headed man was chasing her. At this critical moment, Sarah could only rush in directly. Every once in a while, the pig-headed man opened his eyes again, and Sarah, who was running away, was nervous and scared. She accidentally ran into the beast. When Sarah crawled out of the car, she didn't expect the pig-headed man to catch up with her. When she realized that the situation was not good, Sarah hurried to hide behind a big tree. Since the pig-headed man has such a strong vitality, Sarah cut off his head directly this time so that he could never come back to life again. The video ends here. Subscribe to me if you like me. See you next time.